Hello and welcome to taik18. I am Mohammad Adnan, and in this video we are going to discuss about row level security as well as column level security in data warehouse in Fabric. That's a really amazing cool feature what Microsoft has released recently. We will look into that in detail how we can use that. Before going into that in detail, if you are new to this channel or if you haven't subscribed yet, just click on the subscribe button and also press the bell icon to get the latest notifications. Now let's get started. So this is my Fabric workspace here. And now you can see we have multiple items here, which is data flow, warehouse, and other things. And for an example, in our case, we'll use this one, gold all warehouse 01. If I click on that, you will see these multiple tables inside to that warehouse. So we are going to create two things now. One is the row level security as well as the column level security. Row level security, you might be aware of that. So we'll restrict the data for that particular user. Let's say, for example, one user is responsible for India region, another user is responsible for US region, another is responsible for UK or Australia region. So they want to see the data when logged in only for them particular thing. So if I logged in, I need to see only the India data, for example, and other user, if they are from US, they have to see only the US data. So that's for the row level security. The column level security is basically the thing is like for, if I take an example of HR data. So in the HR data, we'll have the user employee information, and as well as there will be a column about the salary information. So usually they don't want anyone to see the data about who is earning how much. So they want to restrict that particular column for the other users. They may be useful for them, but not for the other users. So they will give access to all the columns on that particular table, not that salary part. So that's where we can control the column level security on that table. All right, so this is the one which we have, and there are few steps which we need to follow here. Okay, the first thing here, we need to create a schema here. So for that, we need to create a schema. We can give a name and then click on go. It is actually, we need to do it on the warehouse side and then click on new visual query. So once you click on that, it's going to open up this thing. And here you can see we have this option. I am not able to zoom this. So let's zoom here from here. Okay, usually we can click on the create a schema option. So it will create a schema. So why we prefer this way is whatever we want to create, the functions and other things we can use inside to that schema. So it is bind to that schema. So you can also see it here. The existing schema is DBO. That's the default which we usually use. And guest and information schema, sales, security, and system. So system, information, and guest DBO are the default things. The sales and security which we created recently, and security is the one which is from here. And then we need to create a function which is a table level function in the SQL. So it's a simple thing. It's not a big thing which we can need to take much effort to learn things. It's a simple steps. Is basically we need to use a create function and then we need to give it a name of that and we need to pass a variable inside to that. That's the parameter basically. And we are asking to return a table which is schema binding, which is what we have the schema to tied up with this one, because there will be chances that the same table will be available on multiple schemas. So that's the reason. And as so return select one as TVF security predict. This is just the name of the column which we are giving here. And we are using a where class statement where username equal to username or username equal to adnan@taik18.com. So this is basically kind of admin user. If you have a separate ID for the admin, because usually what the requirement is, if the user logged in, it has to filter the user level data. If the admin user logged in, then they can see all the data. So that's the difference between the user and the admin, right? So that's the reason I have added here. If the user is logged in, we can just use the username. But if the username itself is adnan@taik18.com, then it has to show everything. So that's the reason here, which I am passing these two variable here in the where statement. So if you create a table function here, and then we need to create a security policy. So first schema, and then the function, and then the security policy. So what does the security policy does is basically create security policy. That's the default thing which you need to add. and then we can give a name here. So I have just given a name taik18 security policy 01, and then use the add filter predicate, and then security dot this function what we have created here, table function security dot tv of security predicate, and then we need to pass the parameter. I mean, yeah, that's a parameter we need to pass here. I'm just using the sales representative, which is actually the column name from the sales dot order table. And if I copy this one and paste here, select star from sales dot orders. So basically, this is case sensitive here. So if I click on run, this will give me the list of options here. As you can see, we have the sales rep as a kind of column name which contains the email ID of the users. So if I go back here, that's what we are passing up here in the security policy for this particular security function, table function. We are passing this one on sales order. So this is basically with state equal to on, I'm just activating that particular policy. So what actually it does is basically, if I go back to this one, and then we'll see it here. So first of all, we are creating a schema. Not a good color. Okay, so and then we need to create a table value function in order to create a function for the row level security. Here we need to create a parameter about that is what we are using parameter, what we need to pass. Let's say, for example, email ID. Okay, and then the next thing what we need to do it here, we need to create a security policy. This is basically the default step which we need to do. So now you may think about why we need to do that. We can control the things in Power BI. Yeah, absolutely, you can control the thing in Power BI. But here we are talking about data warehousing. If you're giving access to any other user for any kind of other thing, like if you're giving for data scientists to further analyze the data, if you're giving users for another data engineers to do other kind of stuff, if you're giving direct access to the user from the direct data warehouse to connect directly into the Power BI, in that case, there is no security involved inside to that. So that's the reason we need to apply the security policy here in the data warehouse level itself. So we will treat data warehouse as a kind of main source for all our analytic purpose. So that's the reason. So security policy, in security policy, we need to assign a table here. So we need to assign to some table, assign a table, and from that we need to call the column name of the table. That's what we have used on this definition. If I go back here, we have created a schema here. We created a table value function up to this stage, and then we are creating a security policy and calling that table function. And here we need to assign to this particular table and referring to this column where we have the email ID and we are activating them. And finally, we need to run this one. So if I click on run, then definitely this is going to work. Basically, the reason is being an admin here, I can see all the data. So that's what we pass. I logged in here as Adnan at taik18.com. So that's why I can see the Hazel here and then sales one and sales two data as well. Now, if we logged in as a kind of Hazel here, so now you can see this is Hazel here. And then if I go here, I have not shared the workspace, but instead of that, I have shared the warehouse itself. So that's the beauty of Fabric. We can share even also the same case in Power BI, but we can share the warehouse item separately and also the warehouse completely. So here we have the gold warehouse. So I click on this. I have just given a right access. So how I have shared is basically we need to go back to the workspace and then click on that particular warehouse here. You can see the share icon. Click here. And then you need to assign the name here and uncheck everything. Read all data using SQL, read all data using Apache Spark, build report on default data set. You need to untick everything and then assign the name. And finally, you need to grant the permission. So then only this will apply. To define granular object level security for specific objects in the warehouse, use grant or deny statement in SQL. That's a different story. So that's how we need to share this one. So now if I come back here, so we have option here to visualize the data, or we can open the warehouse. Click on open the warehouse. This is actually given the read-only access. We can't able to modify any data from here. All right. If I expand the sales here, I can see the orders table here. So now if I click on query 1, select star from sales order. So this select permission was denied on the column sales amount on object order. So basically, I have also applied the column level security for this particular table on my during practice time. So that's why it is not showing up here. But instead of that, I have created a separate view for this. And the reason for that is I applied, like I said, row level security as well as the column level security. And if I come back here and the security one, where is that? Select star from sales dot order. We have multiple columns here. So sales ID, sales representative, and product name, sales amount, and sales date. The error what it shows here is the sales amount. So the permission was denied on the column sales amount on object orders. Like I said in the earlier of this video, that if you want to restrict the employee salary information, so we can hide that using column level security. Similar thing which I did here for this one, the sales amount is a number column. So I don't want to show this to the Hazel user. So that's why I restricted that. So if the user tries to access directly the table, that's not possible. So instead of that, what is the root solution for that is basically we need to create view for that. So the view which I created here is select sales ID, sales representative, product name, sales date, and sales amount. That is for everything. And without amount is I added a new view, and this view she can use on that. And if I go back here, select star from, let me zoom out. Select star from sales dot without amount. If I run this one, now I can see the data, but one more thing here, I am able to see only Hazel information here because it is logged into Hazel. So here the row level security applied. That's how we can able to use that. If now this Hazel user tries to access this data warehouse inside a Power BI report, which she wants to build separately, then only this row level security will apply. She can only able to see only her data, not for other users' data. That's really an amazing thing that we are restricting the things at the base level itself. It is carry forwarding everywhere if you want to use it any other application. So now if we have a function here, select star from F1 that my permission, that's a default function what we have. And then we need to pass the table name and then its object. If I run this one, this will just give me option whatever access do I have for this particular thing. So that's how we can see the user has a permission to select the thing on this particular table and column. Similarly, if we want to look into for the other user, which is the main user, if I go back here, let me zoom out. It's a big one. And then run. And here we can see there are multiple things inside to this table, and also we have multiple permissions. Select, update, unmask, reference, insert, delete kind of thing. So Hazel has just select one, and here user have multiple options to this. So that's the difference between this and that. So I just given access to the warehouse and just the read access. So that's why it is only select options which is available. All right. I think so far the row level security part is clear to you. If you have any questions on this, please let me know in the comment section below so that we can communicate further. And now moving on to the next one for this video, it's column level security. How can we do that? So basically, we need to create the same similar situation here. And as we're restricting the data and other things, so we need to grant permissions to the table level. So if you want to grant permission on the table level, this is how we need to grant. So grant select on sales.view orders.view without amount to Hazel user. So grant select, I'm just granting the select permissions on, this is the table or view name to the user ID. That's how we need to use it. And here for the column level security, grant select on the sales order, that's the table name. And then these are the column which I'm passing up here to Hazel. So you see there is no sales amount column defined on this particular thing. It means we are not allowing Hazel to see the sales amount column. That's the reason. And now, what will happen if they already have access? So usually when you share the warehouse, by default, they will have access to the tables. So you need to deny the access. So how we can do is basically deny select on sales.order to Hazel. So if I click on run this one on this main thing, and then reduce this one. If I go back here and then select on this run, it is working fine because we have given the access to the view, but we restricted the access to the table level. And even now, select sale ID from sales.orders. That's the table name, right? So I'm just selecting one column because I don't have access to the sales amount. If I put star, it will not work. But if I'm just selecting one column from the table, invalid column name sale ID. If I go back to this one, sales.order, this is the correct one. And this is sale ID. Yeah, that's correct. Oh, this is case sensitive. So I need to add ID as D also in capital. So that's one thing. You can also use shift enter to execute the query. Usually in Management Studio, we used to use F5, but here if you use F5, this will refresh the browser. You will lose all your data, So that's why you need to click on shift enter. So now you see this message, the select permission for external policy and this SQL Server database schema table row select was denied on object orders database, this one, right? And that's the reason. So again, we need to go back here and we need to give them the permission grant. And also, if you just click on this grant to this particular user, then they can able to see everything. So I will do it here again. So grant select on sales.order to this user. This is as simple as that. So if I click here, select grant on sales.order to Hazel. If I run this one now, execute it. And now if I click back again, instead of sales ID, if I just use a star here, I am able to see all the data. It should work. Now I can see all the data, even the sales amount column is also available here. That's the risky one. So that's the reason we need to specify what are the columns which we want to give access. So I'm just selecting this again, the deny statement, so that I just revoke the permissions and then I can reissue the permission with the specified column name here. It is executed. Now if I go back and run this one, now this will give me an error about I don't have access to sales amount. So if I directly want to access the sales order, I need to specify the column names. So if I don't know the column name, what are the columns which is available inside to that particular table, which I have access. In that case, we just need to use this one, select star from fn underscore my underscore permissions and table name, comma object. If I run this one, then this will give me a list of available columns which I have access. So this is actually important thing because if we are not sure about what columns which we have access, then how can we specify the column names? So that's the reason. So sale ID, comma, sales rep, comma, product name, DUCT, comma, sale date. And now this is the table which I have access. And then if I click on run, yeah, it is loaded here. So that's how it will work now. So this is the thing which you need to pass for the column level security. So basically, we need to do what are the things. So this is for row level security. And for column level security, basically, we need to deny the permissions, first of all, deny. And then we need to grant the permission. And both of them, it has to be select itself. Because if you give access to update, then they can also update or insert the data. This is just to read the data. And then grant with the specified column names. That's the important thing. Specify column name for that particular user. As simple as that. Please let me know in the comment section below how you feel about this concept in Power BI. I really like this feature about that. Still, it has to go a long way about the usability for the other users. As you are aware in Fabric, for every lakehouse or warehouse, we'll get a default data set. And from this default data set, I built a report on to this my admin login, which is adnan@taik18.com. If I click on the lineage view for this report, I can see this gold warehouse 01 default data set, and this is coming from this data set, and this is backed by this warehouse. Now, let's have a look into this report, how and what it actually is. I just use the sample information here, and let me edit this report. This contains a line graph which has the users, which is sales representative, as a legend, Hazel, sales 1 and sales 2. And this is the sum of sales amount. This is by month, and this is the product by sales representative, and this is product and count of sales ID, how much sale which has by each and every product. So that's the short report which I used here based on this view order amount. And for this particular thing, I'm taking the information from the order table. And here I'm taking this again from the orders table directly, which is sales.orders. And this also from the sales.order. Now, for this particular visual, I just want to copy this and paste at the bottom of the screen and make it a little bit smaller. So this can be realigned a bit, and I want to expand this. All right. So this basically is coming from this one. Instead of this, I want this to come from this view without amount view. So instead of view, I just want to use this as a kind of count of sales ID. So this user has 555 records, so that is fine. It's just for information which I want to show you in a moment. So this is the report, and now I want to save this report. And next thing is I need to share this with other people, which is Hazel. So I can go back to this workspace here, and then if I click on this share button for this user, and then I can add the username here to share this information. Right now, I have already shared this report with the user, and this is the login for this user, and she has access to Hazel and development too, but not the main workspace. So we have option here browse, and then we can click on shared with me. So it will display the list of report which is shared with this user. So right now, this is the report which I'm looking for. If I click on this report, now I see there is an issue with these three visuals, but not on these two. If I click on this error information, the select permission was denied on column sales amount on object orders database. So this information is actually perfectly taking it from the SQL error to this one. That's really amazing. So this clearly helps the information for the developers to know what exactly the problem is. All right, so as if I go back to this report on this one, let me edit this. So here, two things applied. One is row level security as well as column level security. For these three visuals, the column level security applied because I have taken it directly from the orders table. So that's why it is mentioned here on the orders table. And for these two visuals, I'm able to see the data. That's a good thing. But it is filtered to Hazel alone. That's really amazing. So column level security as well as row level security. Whereas for the admin, I can see three of the information, Hazel, sales 1, sales 2, and here also we can see 15 records here. Whereas for Hazel, it is just showing Hazel 5 and these other 5 informations. That's really amazing. So if you have a report which is applied only for this column level security or row level security, you can make use of this functionality. But actually, to be honest, what I was expecting is on this particular thing, even though this I have used here, the sales amount, I agree, this is the main thing which it needs to happen here. So that's why it is not showing up here. And similar case for this one as well. Whereas for this table, even though this is on orders and product sales representative and count of sales ID, there is no link between of the sales amount column used for this one. And if you see the error, it is showing the error as a sales amount itself. So even though if you have access, even though if you are not used the sales amount column for a particular visual, but the table which you're referring here actually contains that column inside to the data model. So that's the reason the user is not able to access this particular report over here. Now, if I click on file, I don't see the data set here. So let's go back for this user view. I want to show you one thing. So this is the data set, and then gold warehouse. I can see this is the data set for the gold warehouse. And here on the top, we have option to create report. It is right now disabled because I have disabled those options. So let me give the access to create a report. If I go to this warehouse, share this one, and build reports default. So I can add Hazel on this one and then click on grant. So let's go back here and let me refresh the browser so that it can sync the access. Now the create report is enabled here. We have three options, which is auto create, create from scratch, and page report. So let's click on scratch, start from scratch, because I want to see whether the sales amount column is visible here or not. Yeah, it is visible here, but the thing is, what will happen if I drag and drop onto my access here? Technically, it should not show. Yeah, that's great. So the select permission is not available for you. The same error message it is showing up here. And if I drag and drop the sales representative, still it should not work. Yeah. The same logic applies here. And now if I use from this without amount one product and then the sales representative, for example, it is perfectly working. And also you see the row level security, it's just showing up as a. So even if you give access to the default data set, even though they can able to see the column name, but they are not able to consume that inside to the report. So that's great. So column level security applied over here, and also the row level security also applied here. So that's it for this video. If you like this video, just hit the big thumbs up button. If you are new to this channel or if you haven't subscribed yet, just click on the subscribe button and also press the bell icon to get the latest notification. But make sure you turn on the notification on your devices. Share it with your friends and colleagues. If you have any queries and feedback, just let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. Keep learning. See you in the next video.